All right, we're moving on.
Jeanine.
Jeanine Zheng. Jeanine is 24. She is from San Francisco, California, and she is a UX designer.
Okay. All right. Um, we talked about that a little bit in our preview podcast about the UX experience of Survivor. What else about Jeanine?
So Jeanine she's a first generation immigrant. Her father immigrated from China, and Survivor was his favorite American reality show. He got her into it. And so while she definitely loves the show, it is a little bit of like hoping to represent and make her dad proud while she ends up playing on the beach.
Okay. All right. Mike, are we ready to hear from Jeanine?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Here is Jeanine.
Why are you here on Survivor?
I'm here for two reasons. So I'm here first and foremost to play for my dad. This is kind of the culmination of his American dream because Survivor has been his favorite reality American TV show forever. And, as a Chinese immigrant, like he could have never imagined being on the show. But for me to now be on the show as his daughter and first gen is honestly for myself. Like I feel like this whole life of mine have been, really high achieving, trying to kind of fulfill this ideal of a perfect person that isn't necessarily me. And whether that was in high school, graduating as valedictorian, going to Harvard, graduating with honors and a thesis, and like all these things that I feel like I had to do or had to achieve and had to be. And Survivor was kind of the first moment that was like, oh, I'm chosen for just who I am and for the things that I don't know that aren't so robotic and so high achieving. And I'm just excited to be able to get out here and play and prove to my 8-year-old self that like me as a person, as a socially intelligent and creative and whatever witty person is enough out here to win.
What's your history with watching Survivor?
I have been watching since I could. I mean, before I could even really understand the show, to be honest. But like I said, my dad has been a fan since day one. So he passed down that love of Survivor for me. And I just grew up watching it. And I feel like I've evolved alongside the show. I can like hallmark my life alongside the different eras of Survivor, from old school to new school to big moves era that we're now in.
Give me
Grace. Yeah. Okay. So Jeanine defines the Survivor eras as old school, new school, and the big moves era.
Which is interesting because so we're not in the new school era. Is it new if it feels
postmodern?
Old?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, is it more so this idea of like, okay, this is post old school, but it's not exactly new era. And I wouldn't even call this the big moves era. Frankly, I would call this the advantage era over everything. I think just from like a game design and structural perspective, that's the biggest difference between this and the other couple of eras. But people like to define the eras of Survivor, and I think Jeanine did it in like a very clean yet very broad way.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like maybe this is like a whole nother podcast. Like, I kind of feel like I'm even okay with old school and new school being over, but then maybe like then there was the big moves era, which is like the 30s. I feel like, but now I feel like we're in like the monster era where it's just like anything could happen at any moment, and it doesn't need to necessarily be big moves, just like there's just like exploding things happening everywhere.
Yeah, it's the minefield era, right? Where just like you don't know what you might step on. It's bound to explode, whether it's from people, whether it's from advantages. And so to that point, like the big moves sometimes get punished, and that if you do too much too early on, you end up drawing this big target onto yourself. But it's interesting to think about Jeanine feeling like she has evolved alongside the show. I mean, listen, we already have her personal journey painted for us, right? Like I could see if/hopefully not when she gets voted out, she's going to give these final words about like, well, at the end of the day, I now realize that I don't necessarily need to be put in this box that I have been all these years of like the valedictorian and the perfect student. Like I am Jeanine. I can play whoever I want to play. And I feel like we're already projecting what her final words will be.
Okay. Let's go back to Jeanine.
Give me one Survivor winner and one non-winner who you identify with the most.
I I don't want to toot my own horn when I say this, but I do think that I have the ability to make one-on-one relationships with people and make people feel really seen and heard like Kim Spradlin did.
Ooh.
So I would say for that reason, I am similar to her as the winner. As the non-winner, actually, it's hard. Can I do it? Could I do non-winner for Winners at War season? I guess this is kind of a loophole because, again, she already won. But Natalie, I just think is so impressive. And she is just such a physical and also social beast and is so powerful. And I just admire her so much. And I think, people can underestimate the power female, females out there. And she just really puts that all to rest. And I hope that I can kind of emulate that in my game as well.
Great. Mike, you allow that?
Yeah, Jeanine broke the question. I love it. Listen, this is the equivalent of Yule looking down the chute when dropping the cannonballs, right? This is not the way the question was outlined, but hell, I applaud ingenuity. Jeanine said she's a creative person, and she's proven it right here by saying, well, technically, I'll go with a non-winning game of someone who won the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and look, listen, no need to be modest in these questions. I know that some people like to clown on people that are comparing themselves to the greats, but like, you're on Survivor for a reason. You compare yourself to Kim Spradlin if you want.
I mean, the question is literally what is one winner and one non-winner that you compare yourself to. So, like, if I find out anybody is clowning on people for answering a winner to the question,
yeah,
I'm gonna send you an angry emoji.
We more so. Are you a fan of sending angry emojis? I will say, I think we're less so a fan of the people who only answer one side of the question, right? If it's only winners or only non-winners. Jeanine, I guess, technically did answer only winners, but she was able to find that loophole.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
What's your favorite moment in Survivor history?
Oh, okay. I have so many favorites, but I will say one of my favorites, the most recent favorite that I've had is from this past season, where the unprecedented tribal council of when all votes were nullified except it came down to either drawing rocks or a coffee chat, basically between Hai and Daniel to decide the fate of their tribe. So it was just crazy to me because seeing the looks on their faces when they were like, only 2 votes. What's happening? Like, I just think the chaos and the surprise on the players' faces, that I love those moments.
What's one life experience you feel has prepared you most for the game?
Honestly, I think that my entire life has prepared me for this game. I feel like I have a lot of outdoor experience from leading backpacking trips at Harvard. And I also feel like, just on the day-to-day, I am genuinely interested in and love hearing people's stories. And so I think that is something that I just do in my everyday, where people joke all the time. They're like, Jeanine's always in the corner at a party while the music's blaring and she's trying to have a one-on-one conversation with someone, and a deep conversation that's like not supposed to be happening at a party, But yeah, I think that just a lot of culminations of small experiences up to this moment. And I feel really prepared to play this game.
What excites you the most?
Yes.
I just have this image of, that meme that's been going around recently, right? Of like the girl yelling into the guy's ear. That's Jeanine at a party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I could see it.
Yeah.
Well, I do feel like that, that's probably me also.
Yeah, you're always the one that's not going to be bumping and grinding what your mama gave you on the dance floor. You're more so going to have a nice, friendly conversation.
Definitely not. Has not happened yet, and probably less likely to happen with each passing day.
I don't know, Rob. I saw you bust a limb at your 40th Amazing Race birthday celebration.
Mm-hmm.
You can always shake those skeletons off and bring those bones back out to the dance floor. I also want to go back to really unorthodox favorite moment from the history of Survivor, right? Very recent one, the unprecedented tribal council, which for them, they'd only seen a few weeks. I love it's phrasing as a coffee chat. The Hai and Daniel coffee chat was essentially Daniel sitting down being like, okay, before anything, I'm not paying for this. Just so you know, I'm not going to pay for this bill. So
welcome to coffee chat. We'll have some coffee.
Hit, discuss amongst yourselves. Only 2 votes in the urn. Please, I'm verklempt right now.
I'm getting a little verklempt. Yeah.
Where's Barbara? Did Barbara vote?
Yeah. Okay. Should we go back to Jeanine?
Let's go back to Jeanine.
Game.
What excites you the most about the new era of Survivor?
I think that what excites me the most is that I have no idea what's in store. I can't even predict what is going to happen. And for me, as someone who, again, is has been high achieving and has always had some sort of, written out metric of success and way to achieve that and study for it and prepare for it, I find it so relieving and liberating to just come out here and know that I can't prepare it for it. I can only deal with what I'm given when I'm given it with what I have, which is who I am. And that is the beauty of the game. I'm so excited for it.
What do you think people will perceive you as?
I think that people will definitely underestimate me. I am prepared for people to see me as a small woman and think that I am weak and that I can't contribute to the tribe dynamic physically, but they are going to be wrong. I am athletic and strong-willed. I also understand that I am Asian and probably will be perceived as, intellectual, strategic. So kind of trying to make sure that I combat that a little bit going in, I think is important.
What type of play?
Grace, just thought that was interesting to hear Jeanine realize these are sort of like some negative stereotypes that people may have about me, and then I am going to have to deal with that in the game.
Yeah, I mean, let's also look at the optics. I think it's really interesting that she is going to be playing on a tribe with another Asian cast member in Owen, who, spoiler alert for his interview, also goes into a bit of that similar perspective, right? Of like, I understand that the way we're sort of stereotyped is to be perceived as smart and sneaky. And so I do wonder, to that point, will they be able to help each other out in that regard, right? Like, will they be able to sort of vouch for each other as to, listen, we're not all like this. But I think it is a really good idea, and ideally how you approach this question, right? Is like, here are some ways that I know I can be looked at, and here's how I will overcome that, as opposed to like, hey, I'm viewed for all these positive aspects and I'm going to steer into them.
Yeah. I just don't remember another player talking about certainly I've heard many players talk about this after the game, but going into the game, here's a bias that people have about people of my race, and then to be thinking about that going into the game and have that verbalized in the pregame interviews. I just think is really interesting.
Yeah, I have to remember, I have to look back through at least the interviews that you and I have done. I have a feeling that there has to have been at least one other cast member who talked about the stereotypes of, especially with Asian Survivor players, of being perceived as sneaky and conniving. I'm sure they've talked about it before, but I think it is something that it is top of mind for two people who, again, also happen to be on the same tribe, which I think could work out really well for each one of them to dispel those notions.
Okay, back to Jeanine.
I think it's important.
What type of player are you looking for in an alliance?
I am looking for a player. Going in, I really want to find one person, my ride or die from day one, who I can just know that I can trust at least until the individual game. I want to be able to know that there's someone who is eyes and ears for me, and that we are kind of a voting block for as long as we can be. And I understand that, it's always an individual game, and even more so once we hit the merge. So I'm just looking for someone that I can feel like I can trust and trust to kind of process information the way that I would and share that with me.
What's the one thing you told yourself you wouldn't do in this game?
Oh, I hope I don't make a fool out of myself. I told myself that I can't be the first one voted out and that I have to make the merge. Those are my two you gotta do, Jeanines. But I'm really, really just hoping that those things happen. or don't happen. Don't happen being voted out, happen making it past the merge. And then obviously winning is the third.
How eager will you be to look for advantages in the game?
Oh, I'm so eager. And I'm gonna have to reel it in because as a super fan, I am so excited to just explore every nook and cranny and take it all in and experience all the things that I've waited so long to do. But I know that looking for an advantage or an idol will put a target on my back. So kind of have to have some self-restraint. But as soon as I feel like it's in the clear, I'm hit the ground running.
What's the best advice you received before coming out to play?
The best advice is what I've received from my family who know me so well and have seen me kind of in this, again, preparation game mode for so long leading up to coming out here. And they just told me right before I left, they said, Jeanine, you have to just have fun, be in the moment. This is your dream. And, regardless of what happens, you've already done it. You've already achieved your dream. And I think that for me, I just need to let that sink in and to understand that I've already done it and anything from here on out is just additive.
Okay. All right. There's Jeanine, Mike.
Yeah, she's again taking the Mike White philosophy. Is it fun? And she's hoping that Survivor will be fun as long as she doesn't get voted out first and makes the merge. As she says, everything after that is additive.
Okay. So Jeanine's coming in, another big fan. She's looking for advantages, looking for an ally that she can have as a ride or die. What else do we have from Jeanine's bio?
Yeah, so she mentioned this before, but she did put in one of her favorite hobbies is backpacking, parentheses, bonus points if it leads to sleeping under the stars. She talked before about leading backpacking trips in Harvard, so I do think maybe despite the perception, again, of her being a smaller woman, I think she is someone who is definitely more capable of being outdoors than maybe some of her other competitors, which, again, might be able to help overcome some of those perceptions. Very creative, as she mentions. What is the accomplishment you're most proud of? My senior thesis, which bridged my two majors of environmental science and visual arts. They are two departments that have never worked together as a double major, and took a lot of initiative to create my own syllabus and thesis, which addresses both. The thesis is a true reflection of me, of my equal passions in sustainability and art. Well, I don't know about sustainability. We'll see if she raises a bit of a stink about, fishing the ocean for clams, a la Second Chances.
Oh, I think you meant sustainability in the game. As Mike, she said she's not going to let herself be the first person voted out.
Right, and that's a little bit like burning off the fossil fuels immediately, right? And will she have enough of a lasting power of the windmill to be able to gain enough energy to use throughout the game? Creativity also helps as well. Again, especially in this new era where there are so many different types of advantages and different types of caveats that come with it. Being able to utilize it in a certain way. We saw that a bit with like the Vati tribe, for example, of how they were utilizing Mike's no vote down to how Marianne used that extra vote to get out Omer. Like having a creative mindset, I think is actually underratedly valuable in the minefield era of Survivor, if we want to call it this. And I think Jeanine having that perspective will help, as well as, again, I talked about this, Ellie, someone else who works in the visual arts. I think I could see them connecting a lot over that.
Okay. Anything else about Jeanine?
Let's see. What is something we would never know from looking at you? People often assume I'm extroverted because I'm very effusive and engaged, especially when meeting someone for the first time, but I'm definitely an introvert and need time alone to recharge, which I do think is interesting. I feel like this is less and less of a phenomenon the more I talk to people. This idea of like the extroverted introvert, right? Someone you might assume is a natural social butterfly, but like needs time to themselves. Hopefully that time to themselves
It's relatable.
Hopefully that time to themselves will not like essentially segregate and sort of separate themselves from the rest of the people on the beach. And hopefully her going off alone would not mean they suspect her to go look and find something. But Jeanine, so she has, again, a bit of a fitness in her background as well. I'll say I'm a little less high on her than Ellie, I think, because of some of those first impressions that she is mentioning. But I do see some upsides for her as well. I think you could get a sense of her energy from her interview. I think she has a really fun energy about her. Like, she very much seems like someone I want to sit down for a coffee date with alongside Hai and Daniel.
Coffee chat.
Exactly. And so I do think that if that is something that will ingratiate herself to other people, and if she is able to like use this as an opportunity to spread her wings and fly, much like the butterflies of dead relatives saying hello, she could be saying hello to $1 million check.